After graduating from high school, I got engaged to my nominal uncle. But in his eyes, I was just a child. On our wedding night, back in the room, I trembled as I reached out to untie his tie. However, he pushed my hand away, chuckled, and said, "Do you think I'm so bestial as to sleep with my niece?" The next day, he used work as an excuse and flew abroad. 2 years later, we met again by chance at a KTV. At that time, a senior was publicly confessing his feelings to me. And he, holding a glass of wine, leaned lazily against the wall, observing nonchalantly. That evening, I sat uneasily in the back of a Maybach, his hand gripping my chin, his gaze slowly scrutinizing me. How dare someone I personally raised run after someone else? I had only intended to step out of the private room for some fresh air. Unexpectedly, I ran into my nominal uncle, Wen Shui, whom I had rarely seen in the past 2 years. Even more unexpectedly, I was stopped by a senior who was confessing his feelings. I shook my head, flustered. "I'm sorry, Queenie, are you bothered that I'm 4 years older than you?" He interrupted, as if he had already prepared his answer. Actually, older men know how to love better. For example, me. Wen Shui held a glass of wine, leaning lazily against the wall, looking like an outsider observing a play, watching this scene indifferently. It seemed the senior had planned this confession for a long time. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the private room immediately rushed out, surrounding us. "Say yes. Say yes. Queenie, Senior Zhao is handsome and rich. Say yes, you won't regret it." Waiting for the cheers to gradually die down, I pursed my lips, finishing my interrupted sentence. "I'm sorry, but I already have a boyfriend." In the distance, Wen Shui slightly raised his eyes to look in our direction. The senior frowned, clearly beginning to lose patience. "You've been saying you have a boyfriend since freshman year, but none of us have ever seen him? If you call him here now, I'll believe you." "Yeah, Queenie, you keep using this excuse to reject people, isn't that too casual?" I also started to get annoyed, grumbling back. "We're getting married soon, why would I lie to you?" Actually, as soon as I saw Wen Shui, I immediately remembered. I was turning 20 soon. He had returned to the country this time to marry me. And predictably, after getting the marriage certificate, he would quickly leave again. Being rejected repeatedly, the senior finally lost control in anger. "Getting married? Queenie, are you taking me for a fool? Have I given you too much face?" He pointed at me, his face clouded, about to start cursing. But at that very moment, another hand, larger and colder, clamped down on his finger, forcefully twisting it backward. The senior's agonizing scream echoed through the hallway. It was Wen Shui's bodyguard. He kicked the senior's hamstring hard. The young man lost his balance, immediately kneeling before me. The KTV manager heard the commotion and rushed over, but pretended not to see what was happening. He slightly bowed, walked to Wen Shui's side, forcing a fawning smile. "Mr. Wen, is this? Did he upset you?" Wen Shui didn't answer. As soon as he picked up his wine glass, the manager immediately shrewdly reached out to take it. Then, he looked at me, slightly raised an eyebrow, and chuckled. "Aren't you coming over?" The noisy crowd that had just been cheering fell silent, no one daring to utter a word. They even consciously made way for me. I obediently walked to Wen Shui's side, able to smell the faint scent of alcohol on him. A bold girl spoke up, but her tone was full of trepidation. "Is this your boyfriend?" Wen Shui always treated me like a child. He surely wouldn't like me saying such a thing on my own. I shook my head, seriously introducing him. "This is my youngest uncle." Wen Shui's expression didn't change much. He just leisurely stroked the engagement ring on his ring finger, the ring I had put on him myself. The manager couldn't guess Wen Shui's thoughts, sweat beading on his forehead. "Mr. Wen, are you still upset? Or should I teach this kid a lesson?" Wen Shui raised his hand to stop him. "Not worth it." Then, he told someone to go into the private room and get his suit jacket. Holding the jacket, he tilted his head and asked me, "Want to play a little longer, or go home with me?" The people behind us all widened their eyes, so curious they were almost unable to restrain themselves from asking questions. I didn't want to stay and be interrogated. I moved a little closer to him, instinctively seeking safety. "Youngest uncle, I want to go home." The driver instinctively raised the partition between the driver's seat and the back, which made me a little flustered. Inside the car, it was so quiet I could clearly hear the tires rolling smoothly on the highway. Wenshua closed his eyes, rubbing his temples. I gently squeezed my hand on my lap, gathering all my courage to speak. "Youngest uncle, do you have a headache? Can I massage your head for you?" It had been almost half a year since we last met. The relationship between Wenshua and me had returned to a distant point, as if we had never been familiar. His deep, husky voice carried a hint of laughter, incredibly captivating. Would that be too much trouble for you? I just got off the plane and was tricked into coming here to entertain clients. I haven't even had time to tell you I'm back." I paused for 2 seconds before realizing he was explaining to me. "It's okay." I knelt on the seat, reached out to his temples, and seriously massaged them. Wenshua closed his eyes, and only then did I dare to boldly observe each feature of his face. He was truly handsome. His features weren't overly delicate, nor overly sharp. But compared to anyone I had ever met, he was still more handsome than all of them. A piercing car horn broke the silence. The driver suddenly braked hard. By inertia, I lurched violently to one side. Just when I thought I would fall, a hand tightly gripped my waist. I was lifted by Wenshua and placed to sit sideways on his lap. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms around his neck. Our eyes met. In his deep, inky eyes, my bewildered face was fully reflected. We were so close that I could clearly smell the strong scent of alcohol on his collar. Coming back to my senses, I hastily tried to get off his lap. But Wenshua held my waist tightly, not letting me escape. He stared at me, then suddenly opened his mouth. "Are you dating?" I was stunned, not understanding why he asked that. "What?" Wenshua observed me indifferently, then suddenly reached out and lifted my chin. I immediately held my breath, so tense I didn't dare to look him directly in the eyes. He was drunk. His usual cold self-restraint could no longer be hidden. "You've grown up, your guts have grown too, haven't they?" "Youngest uncle." I trembled, clutching his shirt, gently calling out. His voice grew deeper, carrying an indescribable obsession. "The one I raised, shouldn't she belong to me?" He slightly curled his lips, chuckling. "How dare you run after someone else?" I wasn't sure what he meant, nor did I dare to think in that direction. After all, in the past 2 years, the time we spent together was less than 3 months. He had even directly rejected me before. He definitely didn't have those feelings for me. But at that moment, he was drunk, only hearing what he wanted to hear, refusing to let go of me. I had no choice but to push aside my messy thoughts, awkwardly reaching out to hug his shoulders. Enduring the flush in my ears, I softly said, "I'm yours. I won't run." Wenshua gently kissed my hair, praising softly. "Good girl." I had called my aunt in advance, asking her to prepare the guest room for Wenshua. But when we got home, he ignored that room and followed me directly into the master bedroom. His intentions were too clear. Actually, this was bound to happen sooner or later. After all, in half a month, on my 20th birthday, Wenshua and I would be registering our marriage. When I reached out to touch his tie, my heart pounded so fast I didn't know if he could hear it. Amidst the hazy feeling of the unknown, I wasn't sure how much I was looking forward to it. Wenshua lowered his eyes, calmly looking at me. A few seconds later, just like 2 years ago, he gently pushed my hand away. "You're still scared." I pressed my lips together tightly. "I'm sorry, youngest uncle." But it also wasn't like 2 years ago anymore. Compared to fear, my emotion at this moment leaned more towards nervousness. Wenxue gripped my wrist, lifting it. He tilted his head slightly, his lips gently brushing the thin skin on my wrist. No need to apologize. That night, I slept in his arms. But I was still instinctively tense. In the quiet of the night, Wenxue slowly caressed the back of my head, speaking softly. Do you want to marry me? I nodded gently, obediently replying. Yes. As if to affirm my words, I snuggled deeper into his embrace. I thought, perhaps I also liked Wenxue a little. Wenxue and I actually had an arranged marriage since childhood. He was 9 years older than me, but he never took this marriage seriously. He told me to call him youngest uncle. When I was little, for several years my father was abroad expanding his business, and he was the one who took care of me. But in my final year of high school, my father's company faced the risk of bankruptcy. His hair turned white overnight, and he said to me with difficulty, Queenie, after you graduate, will you marry Wenxue? No need to register right away, just have the wedding first. Your father's company needs capital from the Wen family. I was completely resistant. I didn't want a loveless marriage. What's more, at that time I only saw Wenxue as an uncle. But then my father worked himself to exhaustion and was hospitalized. I sat by his bedside, finally compromising. However, when my father went to see Wenxue, he flatly refused, without thinking. The next day, as soon as I got home from school, my father knelt before me. He cried, trembling all over, his wrist bandaged, blood seeping through. I'm sorry, Queenie. After you graduate, can you go find Uncle Li? Wenxue doesn't want you, your father truly has no other way. Only Uncle Li agreed to help your father. That man was 7 years older than my father, with a potbelly and a clearly receding hairline. Most importantly, he was married. My father cried, shaking uncontrollably, even his wound reopened. After being rejected by Wenxue, he couldn't bear the pressure of debt and cut his wrist to commit suicide. But he didn't die. So now, he wanted to force me onto the path of death in his place. I ran through the rain to Wenxue's house. He opened the door, looked at me in my soaking wet uniform, his brows tightly furrowed. He pulled me inside the house. What happened? Rainwater mixed with tears, dripping onto the cold floor. I helplessly grabbed his sleeve, my voice choked with a plea. Youngest uncle, will you marry me? I didn't want to die, nor could I stand by and watch my father seek death. The only way out was to ask Wenxue for help. I knew I shouldn't drag him into this mess. Therefore, as soon as he agreed, I was ready to spend my whole life repaying his kindness. On the night of the engagement party, we returned to the new house he had bought. Wenxue had been toasted repeatedly, his steps already a little unsteady. I had mentally prepared myself all day. But when I reached out to untie his tie, I still couldn't help but tremble. Wenxue leaned back on the sofa, avoiding my hand. He rested a hand on his forehead, his eyes holding a teasing smile. What do you want to do? I tightly gripped my sweaty hands, closed my eyes, and leaned in to kiss him. But Wenxue tilted his head back, avoiding it again. He chuckled softly, as if looking at a naughty child throwing a tantrum. You don't have to. Or do you think I'm so bestial as to sleep with my niece? With that, he used his hand to push himself up from the armrest of the sofa and walked towards the guest room. I pulled his hand back, suppressing my confusion, and looked up at him. It's okay. Anyway, we're going to get married. Wenxue frowned, letting out a soft hum. He raised his hand, rather forcefully flicking my forehead. What mischief are you up to, kid? Behave yourself. The dream stopped the moment Wenxue closed the guest room door. I groggily opened my eyes, my mind still slow to process. I thought, even if that hadn't happened, perhaps I would eventually come to like Wenxue someday. After all, my ideal type in high school wasn't much different from him. The bed beside me had been cold for a long time. It seemed Wenxue had been up for a while. I looked at my phone, suddenly remembering today's schedule. After washing my face, I went to his study to find him. Youngest uncle, today I have a friend's roommate's birthday party. We're going to a bar, so I'll probably be home quite late. When he worked, he often wore frameless glasses. Instead of looking strictly ascetic, it made him seem more like a dangerous man in a scholarly disguise. Wenshua leaned back in his swivel chair, his eyes casually sweeping over me. What if someone publicly confesses their feelings to you tonight again? Under his gaze, my face flushed, and I stammered. I'll say. I'm getting married soon. After saying that, I immediately closed the door and ran back to my room. Initially, my roommate said it would only be the four of us. But when we arrived at the bar, there were 4 additional guys already sitting in the booth. It turned out she had used her birthday as an excuse to trick us into a blind group date. I stared at her expressionlessly. She clasped her hands together, pleading with a pitiful look. They wouldn't come if there weren't enough people. Please, Queenie, just sit with me for a little while. I know you have a boyfriend, I'll try my best not to let anyone talk to you, okay? In reality, she did very well. She chatted with 2 guys by herself, completely unfazed. I, meanwhile, comfortably nestled in the corner of the sofa, playing on my phone, enjoying the free time. Just then, Wenshua texted. What time are you done? I'll pick you up. I hesitated for a second, deciding not to hide it from him. I want to go home now, youngest uncle. My roommate tricked me into a group date. Then, I hastily added, but I didn't talk to any of the guys. As soon as the message was sent, the sofa beside me suddenly dipped. It was one of the 2 guys who had just been talking to my roommate. He placed a glass of unknown contents in front of me. It's no fun to come to a bar and not drink. Try this. I picked up the glass of juice in front of me and took a sip. Maintaining a polite but distant demeanor, I refused. I'm sorry, my boyfriend doesn't let me drink alcohol. Drinking this is fine then. He stared at the glass of juice in my hand, and when he saw me drink it, the corner of his mouth curved slightly. Is it that legendary boyfriend again? He chuckled softly. The whole department is buzzing about it. The department's campus belle has a boyfriend who's never shown his face, never came to school to see her, but she's madly in love with him, rejecting countless guys. I gave a casual, polite smile, not responding. He didn't say anything more, just sat silently beside me, slowly drinking his wine. Wenshua still hadn't replied to my message. Perhaps he was angry. I suddenly felt irritated. I didn't know if it was because the guy next to me wouldn't take a hint, or because of Wenshua's indifference. The fire in my heart uncontrollably flared up even more fiercely, making me want to go outside for some fresh air. He seemed to have anticipated this, tilting his head and smiling softly. You look like you need to rest a bit. My consciousness gradually drifted into a void. My ears buzzed, and I couldn't hear what he was saying clearly. I just felt my body burning, eager to find a way to quell this oppressive feeling. He draped his arm over my shoulder, instructing everyone. I'm taking her outside for some fresh air, she seems drunk. My roommate waved her hand, not paying much attention. Okay, remember to take good care of her. I was half dragged, half supported by him as I stood up from the booth. The very next second, he was kicked directly in the chest. I lost my footing and lunged forward, but unexpectedly fell into a familiar embrace, carrying a hint of cold distance. The oppressive feeling in my body seemed to immediately subside. A calm voice sounded in my ear. Boss, the juice was drugged. How do you want to handle it? I was scooped up horizontally, burying my face in the crook of the man's neck. From above, a leisurely voice came, sounding like a death sentence. Break his right arm, and throw him in front of the police station. I nestled into his neck, the sounds of pleading and screaming gradually fading behind me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Don't come near me. The cold air from the car's air conditioning brought me back to some awareness. I realized I was sitting sideways on Wenshua's lap. Youngest uncle, I feel so uncomfortable. I clutched him tightly, feeling like crying. He gently patted my back, his tone clearly reassuring. I'm taking you to the hospital now. Just hold on a little longer. His skin on his neck was cool, with a faint, light scent of sandalwood, like an invisible allure. I was like someone suffering from skin hunger, unable to resist gently biting that area of skin. Wenshua's body suddenly stiffened. No need to go to the hospital. I carefully kissed his neck, whispering words that normally would make me blush profusely just by hearing them. I want you, youngest uncle. The hand on my back gradually grew warmer. He raised his eyes, glancing at the driver through the rearview mirror. The driver immediately understood, pulling up the partition. Wenshua held me a little further away from him. He chuckled, as if angry and helpless, reaching out to gently flick my forehead. What are you trying to tempt me to do right now? Do you want to force me to take advantage of you while you're not sober? He held my waist tightly, pulling me closer to him, forcing me to clearly recognize that he was not indifferent. His voice deepened, carrying an irresistible weight. Queenie, if I want to, it has to be when you willingly consent. Perhaps due to the effects of the drug, my emotions were harder to control than usual. Even a slight grievance was magnified many times over. Tears began to well up in my eyes. I hugged his neck tightly, looking directly into his eyes, silent tears streaming down my cheeks. What do I have to do for you to believe I like you? Wenshua's eyes darkened, deep like a bottomless abyss. Actually, his composure was gradually breaking. I gathered all my courage, lightly touched my lips to his, then immediately pulled back. Unlike my embarrassment, Wenshua had always kept his eyes lowered, silently observing my every move. Like a cold outsider. But when I pulled his hand up, the scorching heat on his fingertips couldn't fool anyone. I placed his hand on my waist, as if sharing a surprising secret with him. Youngest uncle, I've grown up. I wasn't talking about age. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke. But he spoke to the driver. His voice was low, carrying a subtly restrained quality. Turn around, go home. This was the third time I had taken the initiative. Wenshua didn't refuse anymore. The second time happened last year. After he went abroad, his mother once came to see me. She tactfully suggested that if I had time, I should visit him more often in Houston. It's convenient for nurturing your relationship. I nodded repeatedly, not daring to refuse any requests from the Wen family. In those 2 years, I flew to find him quite a few times. Occasionally, he would also return to the country, for example, on my birthday. But there was always an unidentifiable distance between us. That time, I arrived without notice. At the airport, his assistant picked me up. Miss Thieu, the boss is still entertaining clients and can't leave for now. I'll take you back to the villa first. I quietly nodded. My phone screen was still on the latest news. Top female celebrity caught dating wealthy young master abroad, about to enter a prestigious family? The post included a few photos of 2 people kissing in front of a clubhouse, with the man's face blurred. But his figure and clothing style were no different from Wenshua's. Most importantly, the car that appeared in the corner of the last photo. The license plate was not blurred at all. It was his car. I rested my chin on my hand, quietly looking out the window. A vague disappointment lingered in my heart. But what right did I have to question him? Originally, I owed him. Chapter 11. After the nanny finished her shift, the entire villa was left with just me. I opened my suitcase and arranged my clothes. I was also mentally prepared that Wenshua wouldn't come home tonight. Close to midnight, the villa suddenly lost power. The only light source was the street lamp outside the window. Absolute silence, mixed with a strange, indescribable eerie feeling. I hugged a pillow, curled up in the corner of the sofa, and called his assistant. The villa lost power. Is there a backup power source? The generator broke down the day before yesterday, it hasn't been fixed yet. She softened her tone, reassuring me. Don't worry, I'll send someone to check immediately. Before my phone completely ran out of battery, the large door suddenly made a strange noise. I didn't even have time to put on my shoes, I just ran barefoot and panicked to the door, turning on the electronic doorbell screen. The next second, the door was pushed open. Wenxue returned. I froze, staring blankly at him. Youngest uncle? Before the surprise had completely faded, the nascent sense of unease immediately vanished. He hadn't even had time to take off his jacket when he bent down and swept me up. He chuckled softly, his voice lazy but unmistakably affectionate. How long have we been apart, and you've already forgotten everything I told you? How many times have I told you, don't walk barefoot? Compared to scolding, his words were more like a form of indulgence. He placed me down on the sofa. Then he half knelt in front of me, gently lifted my foot, and gently warmed it. Why didn't you call me when the power went out? I unconsciously clenched my fingers, gently digging into the edge of the sofa, turning my head away, not looking at him. I didn't want to bother you and your girlfriend. What did you say? Wenxue paused for a second, then let out a soft chuckle from deep in his throat. He lightly tapped the coffee table beside him, slowly looking at me, his eyes amused. My girlfriend, aren't you? Of course not. I was just someone who relied on marriage to bind him. This somewhat melancholic thought, I only dared to mutter to myself. I opened my phone, tapped on the news article, and quietly held it up in front of him. He glanced at it, and immediately explained. That's Han Jing and his girlfriend. We were in the same private room tonight, discussing a collaboration. Han Jing was the second young master of the Han family, currently serving as a vice president under Wenxue. So that's how it was. Wenxue gently squeezed my foot, the corner of his mouth curving up, teasing. Don't you believe me? I blinked, still not turning my head to look at him. No, I don't. Even though I said that, I still tried to suppress the smile that was unconsciously spreading at the corners of my lips, quickly pulling my foot back and slipping on my slippers. Then, I dashed straight to my room. I'm going to bed. I wrapped myself in the blanket, rolled around on the bed, ignoring the surging joy in my heart. The assistant quickly brought someone to fix the power. The house became bright again. Outside the bathroom, the sound of running water gently echoed, then suddenly stopped. I instinctively tightened the blanket in my hand. After a long silence, I finally took a deep breath, as if I had made up my mind. Then, I got out of bed, went to Wenshue's door, and gently knocked. The door was slightly ajar, the light casting on his damp black hair, a few strands falling messily on his forehead. His black silk pajamas, the top button unbuttoned, revealed a part of his collarbone. Looking at him at this moment, he was nothing short of a dissolute, devil-may-care young master. What is it? He chuckled softly, his tone teasing. Do you want to check if I'm here before you go to sleep? I choked, looking up at him with a bit of anger. Youngest uncle, I already know it was just a misunderstanding. Can you please not mention it again? I tried hard not to call him youngest uncle, but if I didn't remind myself, I would blurt it out as a habit. Fortunately, Wenxue didn't care about my form of address, just calmly asked. Then why are you looking for me? I lowered my head, not daring to look at him. I felt like a steamed bun just taken out of the steamer, radiating heat in waves. I swallowed, hesitantly opening my mouth. I want to sleep with you. It seemed like a long time passed before Wenxue pulled the door wide open, stepping aside to let me in. I lowered my head, quickly walked to the bed, and immediately burrowed under the covers. A faint, fresh yet slightly bitter scent enveloped me. It was his familiar scent. Wenxue placed a bottle of water on the bedside table, then turned off the light and lay down beside me. His breathing quickly became even, as if he had fallen asleep. I quietly moved closer. No reaction. I slowly snuggled into his arms, and Wenxue still didn't move. After a minute of internal struggle, I reached out my sweaty hand, trying to unbutton his pajamas. My hand was suddenly grabbed tightly. Wenxue didn't open his eyes, his voice hoarse, his words lazy. Do you want to get hit? You can't even behave yourself while sleeping. I had used up all the courage of my life for this moment. I gritted my teeth, continuing to unbutton his shirt. Wenshua's patience ran out. He rolled over, pinning me down, completely trapping me in his arms. Our noses touched. He asked hoarsely, "What are you doing?" My hands were locked above my chest, unable to move. I looked up, confused, at him, my voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. "You don't have another girlfriend. Then why don't you want me?" The man above slightly moved his Adam's apple, his eyes deepening. After a moment of silence, he spoke softly. "You're still young. I'm already 19. I looked at him, my gaze firm. "Wenshua, don't treat me like a child anymore." This was the first time I had called him by his given name. However, he still wouldn't let go of me. Anger welled up inside, though I wasn't sure if it was because of him, or because of the rising feeling of shame. My eyes began to sting. Wenshua lowered his head, gently kissing my eyelids. "Crying just like that, isn't that being a child?" He smiled, yet didn't, gently coaxing me. "Can you wait a little longer? I've been working for 30 hours straight without a break. I really don't have the energy tonight." I swallowed back my tears, feeling both apologetic and heartbroken for him. "I'm sorry." "Then you go to sleep." Afraid that I wouldn't behave, Wenshua held my hand tightly, hugged me, and slept all night. Later, after we were married, I once brought up this topic. He calmly revealed the truth. Using the excuse that I was still young was just a pretext. He saw through me then, realizing that I didn't truly love him much, and mostly just wanted to use myself to repay his kindness. So he didn't want to force me. Chapter 13. Turn around, no more hospital. Wenshua told the driver. Go to Yanjiang. His new home was in Yanjiang, which was also where I had lived for the past 2 years. But the effects of the drug grew stronger, gradually swallowing my rationality. My whole body was burning, and I couldn't bear it anymore. He held me tightly, reassuring softly. We're almost there. Although the driver drove as fast as he could. But I still couldn't resist, and as soon as we entered the elevator, I bit his lip. Wenshua's self-control seemed to have reached its limit as well. As soon as we entered the door, he placed me on the shoe cabinet, pulling me into a deep kiss. Both of our breaths became ragged. It wasn't until my lips tingled that he let go. Kissing seemed to also alleviate some of the drug's effects. At least by the time he carried me into the bedroom, I was a little more coherent. I obediently snuggled in his arms, quiet and saying nothing. Wenshua lowered his head to look at me, a hint of tenderness in his eyes. He chuckled softly. Not scared anymore? Being teased by him, I became even more nervous. I whispered. A little. Then softly asked, as if seeking reassurance. Does it hurt, youngest uncle? I'm afraid of pain. He didn't answer directly, only saying. Tell me if you feel uncomfortable. Perhaps due to the effects of the drug, the sensation wasn't what I had imagined. Even when Wenshua intentionally slowed down, I could still retain a bit of rationality to think. He lowered his head, looking at me intently, and suddenly chuckled softly. Why are you staring at me like that? Want to say something? I parted my lips, but hesitated, not knowing how to speak. After a moment of hesitation, I still couldn't resist, and softly asked. Before, have you ever? I pursed my lips, trying to find a more suitable word to express myself. But Wenshua immediately understood. Never. My hand gripped his arm tightly. Why? After all, he was almost 29. Could a man of this age have never been with anyone? This seemed to be the moment when his comforting instincts were activated. Wenshua leaned down, and before kissing me, gently gave me the answer. Because I was waiting for you to grow up. This time, Wenshua returned to permanently shift the focus of his work to the domestic company. Lately, he had been so busy that he stayed at the office all day, not coming home. The next morning. I groggily woke up, my eyes still heavy with sleep, and Wen Shui had already washed up, sitting on the bed buttoning his cuffs. Up so early? I yawned, burying my face in his shoulder, lazily asking. Youngest uncle, are you going to work? Can I come with you? Wen Shui's voice was low, like a lover's whisper, his breath brushing my ear. What's wrong? I hugged his waist, snuggling into his embrace, my voice as sweet as melting cotton candy. Don't want to be away from you. He lifted me slightly, chuckling. Why are you so clingy, my dear? I didn't feel like I was that clingy. I just hugged him in the kitchen while brushing my teeth when he was making breakfast. I just leaned my head on his shoulder on the way to the office, extending my hand to compare the size of our hands. That's all. Wen Shui had just brought me to the office when he had to go into a meeting that lasted no less than 3 hours. I clutched his arm, complaining softly. Haven't seen you for so long. After saying that, I stood on tiptoes and kissed him several times on the cheek. Then I'll just have to make the most of it and kiss you a lot more now. Wen Shui momentarily held his breath, his hand gripping my waist, directly lifting me onto the desk. I raised you to be this big, and I never knew you could be so endearing. I swung my legs, tilted my head, and scooted closer. So, youngest uncle, you kiss me too. He held my chin with 2 fingers, turning my face to meet his. Just as his lips were about to touch mine, the office door was suddenly pushed open. CEO Wen, it's time for the meeting. It was the CEO's assistant, Xing Ziyi. She lowered her eyes, calmly announcing. She was the only person I knew in this company. Grandpa Wen had mentioned her many times, even keeping her for meals with the Wen family on holidays. He once praised her as the most outstanding among the students sponsored by the Wen family. After graduating from university, she joined Wen Shui's company, rising from an ordinary employee to her current position in just 3 years. The door was pushed open too suddenly, making me flinch and pull my shoulders back. Wen Shui tilted his head, avoiding the kiss. He turned his back to Xing Ziyi, showing no reaction. A moment later, he lifted me off the desk, lightly brushing my cheek with his finger. I've arranged someone to look after you. If you need anything, just find him. If CEO Wen. Xing Ziyi interrupted him once more. Her voice was calm, devoid of emotion. Please prioritize important work first. As for Miss Queenie, I will arrange everything for you. As soon as her words fell, Wen Shui suddenly swept his hand, knocking over the pen holder on the desk. Several metal pens rolled down to Xing Ziyi's feet. He rarely got angry. But at this moment, he leaned back against the desk, smiling faintly, his gaze fixed on her. You're overstepping your bounds. The atmosphere became tense. Xing Ziyi bit her lip tightly, bending down to pick up the pens one by one. I'm sorry, CEO Wen. I was just afraid you would miss the meeting. Wen Shui spun a pen in his hand. As she walked past, about to bend down to pick up the last pen, he casually dropped the pen in his hand right in front of her. From a higher position, his voice was calm but full of warning. You seem to have forgotten your place. Miss Xing. This form of address made her entire body stiffen, her hands clutching the pens so tightly her knuckles turned white. His tone was gentle, but the sarcasm was clear only to those involved. I remembered an old incident. When I was in 11th grade, I went to the Wen family's house to celebrate Grandpa Wen's birthday. Xing Ziyi was also there, standing right beside him. She wore a perfectly fitted evening gown, looking striking and beautiful. At that time, an old friend of Grandpa Wen's, visiting from out of town, casually joked. Is this Asia's girlfriend? They look very well matched, from appearance to demeanor. Which corporation's young lady is she? The moment the last sentence echoed, the smile on Xing Ziyi's face stiffened. Grandpa Wen quickly explained her identity. Afterward, the friend's gaze when looking at her became somewhat unreadable. Now, when Wen Shui called her Miss Xing, it was nothing less than a reminder of her place. The status of a secretary. Xing Ziyi remained in her squatting posture, No one could clearly see the expression on her face. A moment later, she spoke in a low voice. I understand, CEO Wen. Wenxue gently squeezed my hand, not bothering to look at her again, and walked straight out. I sat alone in the office, watching a movie on my iPad. Initially, I planned to tour the company floors. But I was afraid of bothering someone to lead me around, so I just stayed put on Wenxue's CEO chair, idly scrolling through TV shows. I don't know how long passed. Wenxue still hadn't returned. But Jing Ziyi arrived first. She glanced at the iPad screen, chuckling disdainfully. So, all this time, you've just been watching these useless things? I flinched, immediately sitting up straight. I didn't quite understand what she meant by nutrition. To save some face, I tried to justify myself. Occasionally. I also watch some educational films, anime, or programs. Jing Ziyi smirked mockingly. When I was 20, to keep up with CEO Wen's pace, the only things I ever watched were online courses. I widened my eyes, not fully understanding the implication of her words. Jing Ziyi calmly admitted. I like CEO Wen, can't you tell? Her eyes momentarily darkened. I know no matter how hard I try, I can't be on the same level as him. His woman must be a prestigious young lady, more outstanding than others. It will never be my turn. I didn't know how I should feel. But before I could even feel any sympathy, she spoke directly to me in a cold voice. But you don't deserve him either. In my eyes, you're nothing but useless. You are the least qualified person to marry him. I choked, unable to say anything. Qualified? I mumbled, my voice full of sarcasm. To marry Wenxue, do you need a financial background check first? If so, then I truly wasn't qualified. After all, after cutting ties with my father, when I got engaged to Wenxue, my WeChat account only had 17 yuan. Jing Ziyi's face turned pale, then white. What nonsense are you talking about? Footsteps from outside gradually grew closer. The office door was pushed open. Wenxue walked in, his gaze casually sweeping over Jing Ziyi. She unconsciously clenched her hands, her voice softening. CEO Wen. He didn't say anything, walked to the window, opened it a little, then sat down on the sofa, crossing his legs. He took out a cigarette and lit it. I blinked, a little surprised. I knew he had a slight smoking habit, but he rarely smoked in front of me. Wenxue slowly looked at Jing Ziyi, still as calm and unhurried as usual. His voice was unwavering. Go out, write your resignation letter, and submit it. Then start handing over your work. The woman in front of him bit her lower lip tightly, until her lips turned white. What did I do wrong? Are you becoming so unreasonable just to protect her? I rested my elbow on the desk, propping my chin, leisurely shifting my gaze to Wenxue. He put out the cigarette, not bothering to care, just calmly said. Get out. Jing Ziyi understood his nature. His patience with her had almost reached rock bottom. She knew very well that if she continued to argue, Wenxue would definitely order her to be dragged out. In a few tense seconds, a tear of hers fell to the floor, echoing in the quiet office. I understand. Jing Ziyi said softly, turning and leaving. Her figure was slender but she maintained her usual straight posture. I quietly sighed, but not to the point of feeling pity. She resigned voluntarily. With her abilities, she could easily go to a company on par with Wen's. I hugged my phone, continuing to edit my digital CV. Wenxue walked over to me, rested a hand on the desk, and glanced at the screen. Looking for a summer internship? Uh-huh. I looked up at him, full of expectation. I feel like what Jing Ziyi said wasn't entirely wrong. I can improve myself, train more. Wenxue lifted me up, then sat down on the chair, placing me on his lap. He quietly listened as I analyzed. I've become too dependent on you. If we break up or divorce later, what will I do if I'm this useless? Wenshua's eyes slowly rose. His voice was faint, but hidden within was danger. Good girl, can you repeat that? His hand on my waist slowly moved upwards. Only then did I feel the danger. No. I hastily pushed his hand away. I just said what if. Wenshua looked at me coldly, but didn't stop. I couldn't help but whimper. Youngest uncle, don't. I was wrong, I won't say it again. Wenshua finally relaxed his expression. The pressure from him gradually softened. He lowered his eyes, meticulously smoothing out the wrinkles on my dress, his tone gentle but full of warning. There won't be a next time. I grumbled, lowering my head to bite his Adam's apple, as if for revenge. Wenshua showed no reaction at all. Instead, he placed his hand on the back of my head, gently stroking it. Oh. Older men, their nervous systems must be weakened, no longer feeling pain. Wenshua said that interning at Wen's company could also accumulate experience. I thought about it for a while, then nodded in agreement, completely overlooking the subtle smile on his lips. The next day, I was assigned to work under one of Wenshua's female assistants. We looked at each other, and she gave a dry laugh. Are you hungry? Huh? Shall I take you to get something to eat? I tilted my head, full of confusion. Thank you, but I just ate 2 mochi cakes. As soon as I said that, I suddenly remembered, and quickly opened my backpack to rummage. I think I still have one, do you want it? No need. No need. She waved her hands repeatedly, smiling wryly. After 3 days, I completely collapsed. Wenshua was completely wrong. They only gave me light tasks that didn't require much thought. For example, on the second day, I only printed exactly 2 sets of documents all day. I didn't learn anything, nor did I feel like I was participating in real work. A week later, I completely lost patience. My dissatisfaction with Wenshua reached its peak. I even prepared myself for a week of Cold War with him. But the CEO's assistant told me that he had been in meetings all day today, and hadn't even had lunch yet. I paused for a few seconds, then suddenly realized. Lately, every time he came home, his eyes showed an undisguised weariness. My Cold War hadn't even started before I unilaterally declared its end. Hopeless, I'd softened again. Work ended in the afternoon. Wenshua, just like the previous few days, texted me to go home first. I sat at my desk, scrolling through Weibo for almost an hour, then wandered around each floor of the company. The entire building was almost empty, with only a few employees working overtime. But at the latest, by 7:30 p.m., they would all leave the company. Only Wenshua, recently, always went home at 10 p.m. I went back to the top floor, carrying my bag, and walked straight into his office. The dim blue light from the computer screen reflected on his frameless glasses. When focused on work, his demeanor became stern, carrying a kind of cold distance. Hearing the sound, he looked up. In those indifferent eyes, there was suddenly a hint of warmth. Why haven't you gone home yet? I took a small cheese tart, peeled off its wrapper, and put it into his mouth. Unhappily grumbling. You haven't eaten anything all day, aren't you hungry? I wanted to scold him, tell him why he didn't tell his assistant to buy something to eat, tell him he didn't know that doing that would give him a stomachache. But thinking about him still working overtime, I couldn't bear to bother him. I lowered my head, gently kissed his cheek, whispering. Today I want to wait for my boyfriend to go home together. You keep working, I'll sit on the sofa and play, I won't disturb you. After saying that, I turned around, preparing to go towards the area. But Wenshua stood up and pulled me back. He pressed me against the desk, leaning down. 1 minute. He whispered. Without warning, a forceful kiss stole all my breath. Around 9:40 p.m. Only the 2 of us were left in the entire company. Wenshua was done with work, but showed no sign of rushing home. He hadn't even taken off his glasses yet, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, one hand in his pocket, walking lazily. Are you hungry? I shook my head, urging him. I already had dinner. You haven't eaten anything yet, you must be hungry, hurry home and eat. Wenshua pulled me back, making me stand between his legs. He slowly said, "No need to rush." "Hmm?" I looked at him confused. Wenshua's hand lightly brushed my cheek, slowly tracing along my collarbone. This action was extremely provocative. My breathing easily broke. "Youngest uncle." He softly hummed, then suddenly turned my shoulders around, facing the floor-to-ceiling window. I didn't quite understand what he meant. Not eating, but wanting to admire the night view first. Until his hand began to misbehave, my whole body trembled. "This is the company. Besides, aren't you hungry?" I used all my strength to push him away, but couldn't budge him even an inch. He was hungry. But hungry in a different way. Wenshua rested his chin on my shoulder, chuckling softly, gently biting my ear. "What should I do, good girl?" His voice was low, like a righteous question. "Can I eat?" Recently, I had watched a few short films with similar lines. "Tonight, I want to eat you up." The eat in that sentence referred to a specific activity. But Wenshua's eat was literal. In the middle of it, a security guard came up to check. I panicked, quickly covering my mouth tightly. A voice came from outside the door. "CEO Wen is still working overtime?" He casually replied. "Yes." Then, his deep eyes locked onto me. "What are you so tense about? This office is very soundproof." Even though he said that, I didn't feel at ease at all. In the end, I still refused to take my hand down. The temperature in the room gradually returned to normal. My legs were jelly, and I almost knelt down with my first step. Wenshua timely supported my waist, scooped me up directly, and carried me out of the office. I curled up in his arms, trembling. "Wenshua, you really are a pervert. I want to break up with you." Wenshua glanced at the camera in the elevator, then suddenly said casually, "The elevator might be exciting too." I immediately felt guilty, obediently hugging his neck tightly. "Youngest uncle, I was wrong." I wanted to bite his neck in anger, but when I looked up, I realized his eyes no longer held the weariness he had while working. My mouth slightly opened, then closed again. Wenshua had reached the parking lot. He placed me in the passenger seat, then asked, "Why aren't you biting?" He looked at me with interest, his voice slow. "Are you afraid I'll touch you in the car a second time?" Wenshua in love was like a transformed person. He could even say these things. I couldn't stay angry anymore. I held it in for a while, finally only able to complain to him. "You can't just rely on me liking you and being soft-hearted with you to bully me all the time. There won't be a second time today." I frowned seriously, my voice getting softer. "Now the most important thing is for you to eat something. Let's go home, I can bake you something." Wenshua listened to me quietly. After a moment, he slightly curved his lips, chuckling softly. He leaned down, helped me fasten my seatbelt, and at the same time, lightly kissed my lips. "Kid, pay attention to what you say from now on." I wasn't swearing or saying anything out of line, was I? He gently brushed his lips against mine, his voice a little hoarse. "You're always so direct, I can't even resist your teasing." Wenshua was too lacking in self-control. Indeed, older men who are new to dating will have a series of unwanted side effects. I celebrated my 20th birthday at the Wen family's house. Wenshua's parents had subtly hinted that it was time to register our marriage and hold the wedding ceremony. But Wenshua was not in a hurry. He saw my momentary hesitation and misunderstood that I wasn't psychologically ready. So, he proactively found an excuse to help me decline. He said he didn't want to tie me down with marriage too early, and that we should continue dating first. I didn't answer immediately because I wanted to buy a pair of wedding rings myself. But I still didn't have enough money. After interning for a week at Wen's company, I switched to another job. Additionally, in my free time, I also took on online tutoring to earn more money. A few days before the summer vacation ended, I used my salary to buy the pair of rings I had chosen 2 months prior. They didn't have diamonds, but the design was very appealing. The last Sunday before school started. The media reported that the Perseid meteor shower would peak tonight. I dragged Wenxue up the mountain, waiting for the meteor shower to gather. Around midnight, the meteor shower began. Wenxue leaned against the car, casually saying, "Going to make a wish?" I enthusiastically nodded. Clasping my hands together, closing my eyes very sincerely. "My only wish right now is..." I suddenly turned around, facing him. Smiling brightly, my eyes curved. Saying loudly, "You agree to my proposal?" He stood still, silently staring at me. I took out the ring box from my pocket. At this moment, an old memory suddenly flashed in my mind. 2 years ago. That night, I ran through the rain to his house, begging him to marry me. After Wenxue agreed, he didn't let me go home anymore. He told his assistant to call my father, saying that he agreed to help the Thu family overcome their crisis. But with one condition. From the moment I married him, I would completely belong to him. From then on, I would no longer be associated with the Thu family, and they would not be allowed to contact me anymore. That night, I slept in the guest room, right next to his room. In the early morning, I was woken by a nightmare. The meteor shower sparkled brilliantly before disappearing into the deep night sky. As if telling me, "I've helped you fulfill your wish." The end.